A man once leaned across a glass-top dining table and whispered to his wife, "You are nothing without me. This empire breathes because I created it." What he did not know, what he could never understand, was that every line of code in their platform, every profit-bearing clause in their contracts, every sleepless night soldered to success was hers. And when he finally tried to erase her name, he forgot an ancient truth: a queen who builds with her mind never truly loses her crown. Welcome back, family. May wisdom, courage, and abiding peace settle in your heart as you join me for tonight's story. Breathe deeply, lean closer, and let the tale unfold. Thunder cracked beyond cracked library windows, rattling dust from fluorescent barrels. Beneath that flicker storm of artificial light sat Amara Okoye, a scholarship student whose wallet rarely held more than coin dust and who considered hunger an unpaid teaching assistant. Microeconomics textbooks splayed before her the way battlefield maps sprawl beneath generals, ink, arrows, equations. She pinched the bridge of her nose, inhaled the stale scent of 8-hour coffee, and solved another pricing equilibrium puzzle for fun, to some, masochism, to Amara, meditation. She heard footsteps, hesitant, rehearsed. Daniel Olumide, rumpled blazer, cologne attempting to mask cheap cafeteria onions, hovered with a practiced half-smile. "Hey, seat taken?" Amara gestured silently. Daniel dropped into the chair, exhaling like he'd sprinted a mile. Pages rustled. He stared at a 3D supply-demand graph as if it were hieroglyphs. After minutes of futile skirmish, he confessed, "I'm drowning here." I hear you're brilliant." Amara studied him. Charisma curled around him like a scented scarf, but his eyes, yes, those eyes betrayed panic. She pushed her notebook toward him. "Let's swim together, then." And so she explained elasticity in a language tremulous enough to crack the shell of his ego yet gentle enough to keep him afloat. Words unfurled like silk banners. Daniel's shoulders relaxed, he began breathing in sync with her cadence. Outside, thunder subsided, but inside the library something vaster ignited, a spark invisible to others, a contract older than parchment, one soul recognizing another's potential, or perhaps its profit. Days bled into weeks, and hunger, that undefeated adversary, remained. They shared half-sandwiches so thin they were almost metaphors. Their laughter echoed between dusty stacks, turning the mausoleum of broken finals into a cathedral of possibility. One drizzling Friday, she retorted that his charm ran on fumes. But beneath the banter, an alloy formed, ambition welded to admiration. It happened at 2:14 a.m. on a rain-soused Saturday. Amara slashed neon markers across a whiteboard, real-time AI forecasting plus African mid-market supply chains equals Nexus dynamics. Her handwriting tilted uphill, as if refusing gravity. Daniel paced, phone calculator glowing like a firefly. Numbers danced. He saw profits, she saw possibilities, reduced food waste, locally sourced parts delivered on time, farmers paid fairly. Lightning illuminated their silhouettes against dusty glass. In that electric strobe, two dreamers looked heroic, mythic, unstoppable. By sunrise, business plans that would one day feed cities lay pooled on the linoleum floor, still damp with coffee rings and promise. Rise of the Phoenix. Graduation, black robes, white smiles, parents proud. Months later, wedding, ivory lace, gold vows, newsprint headlines. University sweethearts launch tech startup. Investors, charmed by Daniel's magnetic pitches, opened wallets. Nexus dynamics grew like bamboo, silent nights visible inches by dawn. Warehouses integrated her predictive software, logistics directors toasted to savings, Daniel graced magazine covers labeled "The Visionary CEO." Meanwhile Amara, tucked in server rooms aglow with cobalt LEDs, debugged code at 3 a.m. She stitched algorithmic wings onto spreadsheets, ensuring that every decision soared above guesswork. Often, she reminded herself she loved anonymity, product, not applause, fueled her. Or so she thought. Little glitches crept in. Amara arrived for a Monday board meeting. Agenda had been updated to exclude her. IT locked her email by accident. Daniel waved it off. Infrastructure refresh, honey, bureaucracy bites. She signed thick packets titled Routine Restructuring, Daniel's lawyer smiling too widely. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. She pressed pen to dotted line. Ink dried. Ownership wept. At night she whispered into darkness, "Why does love feel like paperwork now?" No answer, only the hum of HVAC sounding suspiciously like a warning siren. The mansion's terrace overlooked Lagos Lagoon glittering under moon shards. Daniel sipped 12-year scotch, flicked ash from a Cuban cigar, and delivered the coup. Amara, brilliance can't buy loyalty. I'm divorcing you. Nexus? Entirely mine. Lawyers too expensive for you, accept a settlement, live comfortably. The words skinned her soul. Memory flashed. Amara's pulse slowed, not from resignation but from calculation. She measured distance to door, weight of betrayal, tensile strength of intellect. She inhaled. Exhaled. "Thank you for clarifying," she said, voice smooth as oiled steel. She turned, left him alone with his victory glass clinking like a premature funeral bell. 3 days in a modest apartment scented with copier toner and instant noodles, Amara resurrected her war self. She stacked Daniela's routine contracts beside the original partnership template she'd drafted years ago. Under UV lamplight she marked discrepancies, each clause a loaded bullet he'd fired into their vows. She reread Mother's letters, lines of Igbo proverbs about knotted trees surviving storms. Each proverb felt like a grip on her spine, straightening, steadying. At 4 a.m. she opened old banking portals, discovered transfers camouflaged as marketing consulting, all funneling cash to an account labeled Zenith VIP Mist. She cross-checked. Flights to Seychelles, jewelry purchases, 5-star suites. Proof. Motive. Pattern. She built a coalition quietly. Joy, the junior developer whom Daniel had called replaceable, still revered Amara as mentor. Joy produced Slack logs, Amara's 2 a.m. directives crafting the algorithm's backbone. Mr. Adeyemi, once warehouse foreman, provided time-stamped footage of Amara training staff. An ex-intern uncovered an email thread, from year 1, where Daniel typed, "Not sure how AI works, ask Amara." Each ally delivered evidentiary bricks, Amara mortared them into an ironclad wall. She practiced courtroom statements in front of cracked mirrors. She taught herself to lower her chin for gravity, lift her gaze for grace, modulate voice for thunder. High court, air conditioner humming like a trapped insect. Cameras flashed. Bloggers caffeinated on scandal. Daniel arrived in bespoke navy suit, Rolex winking. Beside him, senior counsel Ajayi, expensive as guilt, twice as sharp. Opening arguments. Ajayi painted Daniel as genius, Amara as sentimental ex-wife seeking payout. Jurors penned scribbled sympathy lines. Then Amara rose. No theatrics, only calm. She produced the original whiteboard photo, AI supply chain formula written in neon pink, her handwriting unmistakable. She submitted Git commits with her username logged at ungodly hours. She read Slack excerpts where Daniel begged for dumbed-down explanations. Each exhibit struck like a cathedral bell. Jurors flinched, Daniel paled. When Amara revealed the Seychelles expense report, company card paying for diamonds inscribed, "Forever yours, M," gasp rippled across pews. Ajayi regrouped, but momentum had shifted. Even the judge leaned forward, fascination trumping fatigue. Daniel's smirk collapsed, replaced by tremor beneath his eye. Gavel echoed like thunder once again, but this time it birthed rainbows. Contracts obtained under deceit are null. Nexus Dynamics ownership reverts to equal partnership. Mr. Alyamide shall reimburse misappropriated funds with 10% penalty. Court costs fall solely to the defendant. Daniel wilted. Cameras captured the precise frame where arrogance converted to anguish. The internet later memed it as when karma hits HD. Reporters flooded Amara with microphones. She merely bowed her head. Justice is never about applause, she said. It's about restoring truth to its rightful owner. Sunrise over the lagoon painted pewter waves gold. Amara stood on Nexus's rooftop terrace. The company's nameplate now bore Amara O, engraved in brushed steel. She inhaled briny promise. Employees gathered spontaneously, applauding not the spectacle but the restoration. Joy wept openly. Mr. Adeyemi raised a fist. Amara thanked them, not with flourish but with a plan. Version 2.0 of our platform will cut shipping waste another 15%. Let's write code that feeds nations. That night, alone, she opened her mother's final letter, one she'd never dared read. It ended, "When the world tells you your mind is too bright, remember stars burned so crops may grow. Shine, but also feed." She kissed the signature, folded the letter, placed it next to the original neon marker, now framed. Then she stepped into her office, lights clicking on one by one, not unlike galaxies answering roll call. Dear family, may Amara's journey remind you that love nourishes hearts yet knowledge shields destinies. Build your dreams on pillars of wisdom, and should betrayal visit, stand firm, truth has the patience of mountains. Until our next story, remain blessed, remain courageous, and remember, no one can erase a name etched by its own brilliance. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video. Now both carried the same deadly secret. Both faced the same social stigma if discovered. Both had reasons to maintain silence about their relationship. But instead of creating solidarity, this shared burden became a weapon each could use against the other. The relationship that had once felt like salvation for both of them transformed overnight into a prison neither could escape. What happened next demonstrates how quickly love can transform into hatred when fear and shame enter the equation. Kareem became obsessed with controlling every aspect of Layla's life. If she was going to be his ruin, he reasoned, he needed to manage that risk. He demanded to know where she went after work, who she spoke with, what she posted on social media. He checked her phone when she wasn't looking. He drove past her apartment to monitor her activities. Layla, feeling trapped and increasingly frightened by Kareem's behavior, began to push back in dangerous ways. She reminded him that she had just as much power to destroy his life as he had to destroy hers. She threatened to tell Amina about their affair. She hinted that she might reveal their shared medical condition to their colleagues. These weren't idle threats, they were weapons in an increasingly toxic power struggle. The gifts stopped. The romantic dinners ended. Their meetings in the Bur Dubai apartment became confrontational sessions filled with accusations, threats, and barely controlled violence. Colleagues at work noticed the change. Kareem appeared agitated and distracted. Layla sometimes had bruises on her arms that she explained away as accidents. The warm interactions that had once made everyone uncomfortable were replaced by cold formality that felt even more ominous. At home, Amina began noticing changes in her husband's behavior. He was distant and irritable. He took phone calls in private and left the house at odd hours. She'd been married to this man for 20 years, she knew when something was seriously wrong. Amina began her own quiet investigation. She followed up on rumors she'd heard about Kareem's relationship with the young receptionist. She checked his credit card statements and found charges at restaurants and hotels she'd never visited. She discovered the apartment lease in Dubai. The truth was closing in from multiple directions, and everyone involved knew it. The question wasn't whether this situation would explode, it was when, and how many people would be destroyed in the blast. The answer came on a humid August evening that would change multiple families forever. Have you ever been in a relationship that became toxic? Have you watched someone you care about trapped in a dangerous dynamic they couldn't escape? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insights might help someone else recognize warning signs before it's too late. August 15th started like any other day, but it would end with a young woman dead and a family man transformed into a killer. Kareem had demanded that Layla meet him at their usual apartment that evening. His message was urgent and angry. He discovered that she'd been talking to a mutual colleague about their relationship, dropping hints that made him paranoid about exposure. When Layla arrived at 8 p.m., she found Kareem pacing the small living room like a caged animal. The man who had once greeted her with gifts and gentle words now looked at her with undisguised hatred. "You can't keep your mouth shut, can you?" he began. "After everything I've done for you, you want to destroy me." Layla, who had spent months living in fear of his increasingly violent moods, decided she'd had enough. "Destroy you?" she shot back. "You destroyed yourself. You're the one who's married. You're the one who lied to your wife. I don't owe you anything." The argument escalated quickly. Neighbors later reported hearing shouting that grew progressively louder throughout the evening. At some point, Layla made the threat that pushed Kareem past the point of rational thought. "If you don't start treating me with respect," she said, "I'm going to tell everyone the truth. Your wife, your children, your boss, everyone will know exactly what kind of man you really are." For Kareem, this represented complete annihilation. Not just divorce or job loss, but total social destruction. In his mind, Layla had become not just an obstacle but an active threat to his survival. What happened next took less than 3 minutes, but those minutes changed everything. Driven by panic, rage, and desperation, Kareem grabbed Layla by the throat. What began as an attempt to silence her became something much worse. By the time he released his grip, she was unconscious. By the time he checked for a pulse, she was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. For several minutes, Kareem sat on the floor next to Layla's body, unable to process what he had done. This wasn't supposed to happen. He hadn't planned to kill her. He just wanted her to stop threatening him. But intentions don't matter when someone is dead. Panic replaced rage as Kareem realized the magnitude of his situation. He wrapped Layla's body in bedsheets, carried her to his car, and drove aimlessly through Dubai while trying to decide what to do next. Finally, he chose a construction site near Al-Qasais, a remote area where he hoped the body might not be discovered for months or years. 2 days later, construction workers found her remains. The investigation moved quickly. Security cameras captured Kareem's car near the disposal site. Text messages on Layla's phone revealed their relationship and his threats. Forensic evidence linked him definitively to the crime. Within a week, Dubai police had arrested the respected family man, and the story that shocked the expatriate community began to unfold. The trial revealed every sordid detail. The affair, the disease, the threats, the murder, and the attempted cover-up. Kareem's defense argued that learning about his HIV status had caused temporary insanity, but prosecutors successfully demonstrated a pattern of escalating violence and control. The verdict was swift and merciless: life imprisonment. Amina attended every day of the trial, watching her husband of 20 years revealed as someone she'd never truly known. In later interviews, she described the experience as watching the death of the man I thought I married. Make sure to share this story with someone who needs to understand the warning signs of toxic relationships. Sometimes the most dangerous situations develop gradually, with each step seeming small and manageable until suddenly you're trapped in something deadly. Today, Karim Al-Mansour sits in a Dubai prison cell, serving a life sentence that will likely end only with his death. The respected logistics manager, devoted father, and pillar of the community has become a cautionary tale whispered throughout the city's expatriate circles. But this story's impact extends far beyond one man's fall from grace. Amina Al-Mansour was forced to rebuild her entire life. She moved her children to a different neighborhood, changed their schools, and eventually relocated to another country to escape the scandal's shadow. In interviews years later, she spoke about the devastating realization that the man she'd shared a bed with for 20 years was capable of murder. The expatriate community in Dubai learned uncomfortable lessons about the dangerous power dynamics that can develop in offices, especially between older men in positions of authority and younger women seeking career advancement. Companies began implementing stricter policies about workplace relationships. Families started having more honest conversations about marriage, fidelity, and the warning signs of emotional neglect that can make good people vulnerable to devastating choices. But perhaps the most important lesson from this tragedy is about the deadly cost of secrecy and shame. If Karim had been honest about his marital struggles, he might have sought counseling or made healthier choices. If he'd approached his HIV diagnosis with medical rather than moral thinking, he could have received proper treatment and prevented transmission. If he'd been able to end the relationship with Layla honestly rather than through threats and violence, both of them might be alive and healthy today. Instead, shame and fear created a spiral of deception that ended with a young woman dead and multiple families destroyed. The next time you find yourself attracted to someone inappropriate, remember Karim and Layla. The next time you're tempted to handle a serious problem through secrecy rather than honesty, think about this case. The next time you feel trapped in a relationship that's become threatening or toxic, remember that asking for help is always safer than trying to handle it alone. Your life, and the lives of people around you, may depend on the choices you make in those crucial moments. Thank you for watching another episode of Whispered Crimes. If this story opened your eyes to dangers you hadn't considered before, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to hear these warnings. And remember, the most important crime to prevent is often the one that hasn't happened yet. Stay safe out there.